Hello. Assalamu alaikum. Ji anu, pakhair wagale, ni hao, chunashumme, washmale, wahaya gozaimasu, guten morgen, hola, bonjour, privyet, kaifa hal, hale shama chatore, ahlan wasalan, marhaba, buna, mucho, gracias, and a very amazing good morning to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching world this morning. Alongside Shahzad Khan, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that everybody out there is doing perfectly fine because we definitely want our viewers to stay healthy and fit as well. But other than that, talking about me, my own self, I'm sorry that I have to do it myself today because my co-host decided not to show up today, but that's perfectly all right. But other than that, we hope that everybody's Ramadan is going fine, everybody is superb. And for all those people who might not be fasting, we hope and pray that you guys are doing great too as well. As far as I'm concerned, ladies and gentlemen, and since you have to wake up for Seher, so obviously at times there are days when you're not really, on top of your game because of the fact that you haven't slept enough. So I think that's one of those days for me today. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to rise and shine, wake up, get up, and be more focused about whatever you want to achieve in life because it's not going to come in handy. All you have to do is be dedicated. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, today is a very important day. And I'm glad that this day is actually in between one of the holy months, and which we know as Ramadan as well. And I think that it is pretty much in line with our teachings as well. And ladies and gentlemen, speaking of that, 29th of May, it is the United Nations Peacekeeping Day as well, where for the very first time, I think it was observed in 1948, where the first ever peacekeeping mission was actually sent within, well, I'm not very sure of the place as well, but I think it had to do somewhere alongside the Arab lines as well. I think that's what the area is. But we'll particularly be sure about it. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, at the same time, for all of those people who've sacrificed their lives to make sure that, that the peace prevails within the region, almost 3,800 people have sacrificed their lives while probably obviously being on their duties as well. So I think that it is a day to remember all of those sacrifices where they have changed probably an area where, it was war struck to making sure that, the peace prevails within those areas as well. Ladies and gentlemen, then at the same time, I think whenever we talk about United Nations peacekeeping missions, Pakistanis have played a very important role. Almost 156 Pakistanis have sacrificed their lives and have embraced martyrdom as well, where in 2018, United Nations actually awarded Mr. Naik Naeem Raza with an award as well because of because he embraced Shahada in the probably the perfect place, or probably that's how we're going to call it, Democratic Republic of Congo as well, while being on duty. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that we really need to raise our hands and pray for all of those people who've made sure that life is going to be in the safest hands as well. But developing and talking about this, I think that we really need to go towards the guests who've actually joined us today for this, to talk about this particularly, because there are a lot of challenges globally faced by the UN peacekeeping missions too as well. We're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about where the peacekeeping missions have been deployed. And we really need to talk about, their day-to-day activities and what actually happens and, how does it all take place. So to talk about all of this, I think that, I mean, it can't get better than this because the person himself is in the studios with us on my right-hand side. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been joined by somebody who's actually the United Nations resident coordinator, Mr. Neil Boone. Hello, hi, how are you?
Privyet, and hello in multiple languages. I can't do it in as many as you did, though.
But thank you very much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you on such a day as well. And alongside Mr. Neil Boone, ladies and gentlemen, we have been joined by somebody who's actually written a book about peacekeeping missions as well, and we're going to asking about I mean, what are his observations? How do you think things are going? Whether he thinks whether things are going in the right direction or not as well. He is none other Mr. Professor Tawar Al-Jameen. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Walaikum assalam. I am fasting, so I cannot be as enthusiastic as you are.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you. But ladies and gentlemen, this year, 2019, the theme is protecting civilians and protecting peace. Now, it's a very vast kind of term as well. It does not really happen that easily. So I think first things first, I'm going to ask Mr. Neil Boone over here, how would you highlight the significance of this day where we are actually talking about all of those people who've sacrificed their lives to maintain peace in particular region, but then in general, how is it?
Yeah, well, if you think about why the United Nations was created,
Yeah.
coming out of the world wars of 1945 and the tens of millions of people who died at that point, there wasn't a mechanism that existed when something came up to try to stop it boiling over, and there wasn't something when there was a solution to keep that peace. So the whole idea of peacekeeping, observing peace, is really something that's fundamental to the creation of the UN in 1945.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's great. But, since it's 2019 now, do you think that things have actually changed with the help of peacekeeping missions?
I think it's made a big difference in many places. And there's many of those missions in which Pakistan has served. If you look at a country like Sierra Leone on the west coast of Africa, known for diamonds, there's been films about it as well,
Exactly.
Black Diamonds. And that was a place that really had gone to hell. You had rebel groups that were recruiting children, which were drugging children. The whole place was falling apart. And essentially you had a UN peacekeeping mission go in there, quite robust mandate. And as a result, after many years, that is a place at peace. They've had elections now for a number of years, and again, Pakistanis played a central role. Another example is Liberia in West Africa, which also had a long period of civil war. I had a friend who was kidnapped. I heard about it on the radio in the morning, that he had been kidnapped for a few weeks because of a dispute over food going into a rebel-held area.
All right.
But again, a place where Pakistan had a leadership role, was leading the mission or was the deputy chief of mission. Again, they've had 3 democratic elections. They just actually had a football player elected as the president of Liberia.
Wow,
He used to play with Arsenal, I think.
Yeah, I think that's great too as well. But then at the same time, ladies and gentlemen, today it's the 20th anniversary of sending the UN peacekeeping missions to the Sierra Leone as well. I think that this is something which is very special as well and close to our hearts as well. But moving on to Professor Tawar Al-Jameen. Sir, so why did you even decide to write a book about UN peacekeeping missions? I mean, why was there a need for that when people knew what United Nations was doing anyways?
I am a soldier.
Okay.
That has been my first career. And my battalion was the first one to go to Mogadishu. The first 500 brave men who landed in Mogadishu when the conditions were not at all stable.
Wow.
And it was much later than the Americans came. They were literally guinea pigs. But the important thing, it was part regimental history, part international relations, part why I wanted to investigate why was Pakistan so keen in sending the troops over there? Because I found out that it was a time when we were really isolated. Most of the time we are isolated. But it was again one time we were really isolated. The Cold War had ended. Somalia had lost its strategic significance. So had Pakistan. So this was one way that Pakistan could regain its place in the comity of the world. And it was, I think, a watershed performance because of that. Pakistan became one of the leading troop contributing countries. It still is. It is 6th in number. We have our own problems here. We are fighting
out of 124 member states.
That's right.
So
we are number 6. Well, it makes me feel proud.
We still send 5,000 plus people there. It's a large number, given the fact that we have our own counterinsurgency operations in Pakistan. So it's a large number. It's military diplomacy. It keeps our country relevant. And the purpose of this book was to highlight. Nobody has written any book on Somalia from Pakistan. Although we had the largest representation at that time, 7,000 plus men and women were.
You're talking about 1992.
92, yeah. So nobody has written a book on it. There is a picture. There's a movie, Black Hawk Down, which is not very flattering for Pakistani peacekeepers. We played a very important role. So I've tried to document it.
So other than the book, I want to talk about your experience when you were there, because you just said that you were a part of the peacekeeping mission yourself.
I was a liaison officer, so I visited Somalia. My battalion was there. Somalia was a destroyed country. It was a broken country, but the fact of the matter is that Pakistani soldiers are very popular. I myself heard them shouting Pakistan, Somali Walal Walal, which means we are brothers.
Okay.
So they really.
So say it again. I want to learn it. What is it?
You're good with language. It's Walal Walal.
Walal Walal.
Yeah, brothers. So that was the slogan that they used to shout until things went really bad. Once they went after the Farhadi, that was something. They lost track of what they were supposed to do. The UN, not the Pakistanis. And on one single day, 5th of June, we lost 24 peacekeepers. That is the largest number of men that you have lost. And we have just talked about Naik Naeem Raza. The sad fact is that these young men who go to serve humanity, not their country alone.
Exactly.
Serve humanity, wear blue berets and blue helmets. They are in a foreign country. They don't know, they cannot differentiate between friend and foe. The mandate is often not very clear. So they have to take initiative many of the times themselves on their own. And when they are killed, when they lay down their lives, embrace Shahadat, they are mostly unsung heroes, because you see, when you fight over here, on the eastern border or the western border or within the country, you are recognized.
Yeah.
So the UN medal, yes, good. That is a recognition at the international level. But no Satara Jurat, no Tamga Jurat, they do get. Sometimes they do. Somalia, they were awarded gallantry awards. But most of the time, they remain unsung heroes. So that is a very, we don't realize how many of them are there. What are they doing over there? It's a very, very difficult mission.
I think these are a lot of questions which really needs to be directed to Mr. Neil Boone over here. I mean, for example, where Professor Togral is actually saying, I mean, I know that, I'm diverging a little bit as well, but just for the sake of knowledge and awareness for all those people who are out there, for all of those people who actually go to serve within the UN peacekeeping mission, is it most of the time the case that, they're not aware of what they're supposed to do? Or probably they have to take an initiative by their own selves as well, or their particular...
They're aware, but I think it's a difficult mission. In the country, in your own country, you're very clear.
Okay.
They know what their mandate is.
Yes.
That is not, but it's difficult.
I mean, this is what you said, I mean, like 3 minutes ago.
I'm not saying that they're not aware.
But you have...
They're aware.
Yeah, people are given briefings.
We teach them.
There's all sorts of experience, since 1948 when it first started that is applied. But I think the point is you're going into a country which has often a very complicated situation. It's not a country
already, obviously.
I mean, there were some examples not so long ago in South Sudan when the civil war started again after peace, and you had thousands of people who were trying to come into actually UN peacekeeping bases because they were scared of being killed, and the commanders essentially on the ground had to make the decision whether to let them in. There wasn't a standard operating procedure. In fact, normally you wouldn't let people in. But the decision was that humanity had to prevail, and the people were allowed to shelter. And in some cases, even the camps were attacked. And there are Pakistanis involved in that as well, because they were part of the force in South Sudan, and an important part of it.
All right, we'll definitely build up on that. But then at the same time, what is more important to ask is that why do you think that United Nations peacekeeping is important for global peace?
Well, you have areas of the world where things could go much worse.
Okay.
You have areas which are on shipping routes. You have areas which are in volatile places. You can make an argument that if Liberia had gone wrong, it might have affected Nigeria, it might have affected Ghana, and the whole West Africa could have been messed up. So by having a peacekeeping operation come in, usually it comes after a peace agreement, it lowers the temperature, and it provides opportunities for the other peace-building mechanisms to come into place. The difficulty is that sometimes the peacekeeping mission becomes a substitute for peace building, and you just have the mission. And for example, you've had Pakistanis serving bravely and losing their life, as the Shaheed did just last year in Congo. And although things have stabilized there, and there was an election, there still are many deep problems. But in other places, if that tool, peacekeeping is a tool for peace, if that works well with the other tools, it can actually lead to lasting peace, as it had in some of the examples I showed earlier.
Exactly, and which is why, what I want to know is, what is the difference in peacekeeping and peace building? I think I think this is something which everybody needs to be sure of. I mean, because you just mentioned that, from peacekeeping it went to peace building as well. So what is the major difference in between peace building and peacekeeping?
Well, peacekeeping, there's usually different stages, and you can come in as well on this. Peacekeeping is often, initially after a conflict, you come in and you have a ceasefire.
Okay.
And often the peacekeepers then maintain that ceasefire. Peace building is much more than that, though. Peace building means bringing the different sides together in the conflict. It can mean creating institutions. It can mean the peacekeepers engaging with the communities themselves to reduce tensions. Peace building also involves getting the economy going. It involves actually many of the things that Pakistan has done itself inside the country. So peacekeeping is really something, looking at a thermometer on the wall over there. It keeps the temperature down, and it allows the other peace building initiatives to come. And if it's going well, the peacekeepers become part of the peace building as well.
Wow.
But peacekeeping alone in itself isn't enough to build peace. It's one of the tools, but there have to be 3 or 4 other things in the toolkit.
And I truly get this idea too as well, which is why I'm going to move on to Professor Thorgal over here. So, please, can you share a few highlights from, the UN peacekeeping mission which went to Somalia in 1992, and you've written a book about it. A few of the highlights.
Somalia was in a bad shape.
How bad was it? I mean, I want people to know.
People were dying by hundreds and thousands because they weren't getting food, and whatever food was landing there was being stolen by the warlords and their followers. So it was a divided country, it was a broken country. United Nations decided that they had to intervene there to stop the humanity from dying and to bring in some kind of law and order into that country. So that was the reason that people were sent over there. And it was the Pakistani mission, the first Pakistani 500 soldiers from my battalion, 724. They stabilized the situation to an extent that the United Nations operations in Somalia could be built up on that.
Wow.
They sent some observers first, and then these men, they were armed men, they went when they armored personal carriers. It was a robust mission. They were able to stabilize, and then and it remained till 95. In the annals of UN peacekeeping, it's not supposed to be a successful mission. But as far as Pakistan is concerned, we had our own foreign policy objectives. You see, as I mentioned earlier, we had become a geopolitical discard at that point in time, but we were able to, through our sheer professionalism, show to the world that hey, this is a country with good army which can do good.
Wonderful.
And they did well in Somalia, as he said. Many of the soldiers would share their food, whatever rations that they were getting.
Exactly.
They would share with the people, and the situation was horrible. People didn't have water, they didn't have food, they didn't have. It was horrible. I saw it with my own eye. It was absolutely horrible the way the people were there. So when they went in, they were able to secure the port. They were able to make the airport again functional. So the rations, the foods, peacekeeping mission.
But I think it's important to say that I think from that, Pakistan has become one of the most respected leading countries. I mean, both in terms of what your ambassador Malaya Lodi does in New York in terms of setting policy on peacekeeping. When I first came here in 2015, at that time, Lieutenant General Maqsood Ahmed was serving for 3 years as the top military advisor to the Secretary General, a respected Pakistani general. And I think that reflects the quality and respect there is for the Pakistan contribution for peacekeeping.
Absolutely.
It's amongst the most experienced, amongst the most diverse,
Yeah.
and has worked in successful places and has worked in places where it's been harder, such as Somalia. Yeah.
And that's superb too as well. Very sorry, but I'll have to mention away because I was, ladies and gentlemen, born in 87, and I think I'm going to go take you back in time where it was Alpha Bravo Charlie, one of the very hit drama serials on television screens of PTV as well, directed by Mr. Shoaib Mansoor. And there was a depiction of a UN peacekeeping mission at that time within one of our drama series as well. I still remember. Yeah. I think that the name of the character was Gulsher Khan, who actually had to go to Somalia for that reason. And he was embraced, Bosnia, sorry. And he embraced martyrdom over there. Yeah, to be sure about that. But at the same time, do you want to show the book? Because for all those people who might want to give it a read, so the title says?
It says UN peacekeeping operations in Somalia 1992-95. So this is available in the market with Paramount Books. And I recommend it to my students who are studying peacekeeping. It can be a textbook for them.
Exactly. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm not very sure whether you're going to make it a textbook or not, but do give it a read, and I think that it is very important for people out there. But then at the same time, this is one thing which I can collect from that drama serial which I watched while I was a kid, and that was that a lot of UN peacekeeping missions might face a lot of challenges while they're on ground, or probably whatever place they are actually deployed. So what are the most common challenges they face, and then what are the challenges which you people face? I mean, as in how to organize and then be in conversation with other nations as well for the peacekeeping mission. So what are the challenges?
I think you've got political challenges and sort of operational logistic challenges. And you use Bosnia. My father was born in Bosnia, but in an earlier conflict, World War II. But I'm familiar with the place. And there was a political challenge because you had a a very complicated political arrangement. It wasn't very clear, and terrible things happened in Bosnia. I think one of the stains on UN peacekeeping is in Bosnia when Muslims were killed in Srebrenica.
Exactly.
About 5,000, 6,000
Yeah.
massacred. At the same time, I mean, there's operational challenges. If you're trying to move around in South Sudan, where there's no roads, very weak air structure, it's hard to get food, it's hard to get supplies, it's hard to know who's who. I mean, that is really difficult. And I think one of the strengths which Pakistan is actually bringing now is that they have quite impressive logistics ability. And I myself have been to Pindi, to GHQ,
Yeah.
and they have a huge warehouse where they have everything pre-positioned that needs to be done if a peacekeeping mission has to be rolled out quickly, including the logistics side of it. Because if you don't have that, you can't get the operational flexibility you need. I mean, another key issue is reaching out to communities. And that's actually the theme for this year, is protecting
Yeah.
civilians.
Protecting
Because,
civilians,
because the
protecting
UN peacekeepers, for example, in Congo, and the Pakistani ones are a good example, and the peacekeeper who lost his life, sacrificed his life last year, I think was an example of that. You have rebel movements that are abusing people, abusing women. And the peacekeepers provide some protection to them. And it's important to have women in the peacekeeping as well. And Pakistan last year met actually the 15% target for women peacekeepers, which is a real accomplishment. Because in 2015, when we had the Undersecretary General of the Department for Field Services linked to peacekeeping here, there were very, very few women, Pakistani women in peacekeeping. But we met the generals then, and they accomplished the task.
Yeah.
And those women can then reach out to those communities, and that makes protection of civilians that much more effective.
And I think for that, people need to be trained too as well. And I think that every other country might be working in the same direction, where you've pointed out that Pakistan actually needs to work on it. But Professor Togal, you know, there's one last question which I would actually ask you. How do you think that Pakistani missions have fared on the missions so
They
far?
fared well. They fared very well. And we teach peacekeeping in NUST. Our center teaches peacekeeping.
Yeah.
Neil Bune
It's
is
an impressive place.
he's a frequent guest with us. And the point that he mentioned, the benchmark of having 15% female representation,
Yeah.
it was a huge challenge because, you know, we are a conservative society and people are very protective of their girls. But girls are going.
Yeah.
They are not only doctors, they are logisticians, they are communication experts, they are engineers.
I mean, we have got women from where they're from. They're commercial pilots, they're fighter pilots, and now
absolutely.
finally in the armed forces as well. So I think in days to come, the
But
things are going to
it's
change.
important to have females in
Yeah.
missions because they can empathize with the women.
And they can talk, you know, they can be, I think they can play a very positive role in
Absolutely.
communicating on a grassroots level. I think that's what the point was which you were making. But thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us. It was wonderful to have you. But towards the end, you know, there's this one thing which, or one message which you would want to give out to, you know, 46 other countries, because you go out in 46 other countries on this day. So whatever you want to say, please go ahead.
I mean, I think the important thing is that Pakistan has contributed to bringing peace in many countries
Makes
around
me
the world.
proud. Yeah, thank you very much for saying that. Professor Saab, what would you say?
I would say that Pakistan is an important member of the United Nations, and Pakistan knows its role, and therefore it's willing to provide its soldiers, diplomats, volunteers for
Yeah.
UN peacekeeping and for any other purpose. So Pakistan is ready. to do
Exactly,
that.
and that's what I wanted to ask. How do you think that a volunteer can be a part of a peacekeeping mission? Can a volunteer be part of a peacekeeping mission? I mean, for anybody from the community?
You do have a UN volunteer program,
Okay.
and usually in places where there's missions, I know South Sudan the best, you do have volunteers. Now, they're not usually part of the
Peacekeeping
military
mission.
side of the
No, no.
mission, but they can be linked to mission support, or they can be linked to civilian work that is parallel to the peacekeeping mission.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much
Yeah.
for being with us. It was wonderful to have you on such an important day. For everybody who's out there, we're heading out for a short break. Don't go anywhere, because when you guys will come back, we've got something to cleanse our soul with. Let's do it. Good morning. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for everybody who just got tuned into PTV World. You watching World this morning alongside Shahzad Khan. Earlier, ladies and gentlemen, we were in conversation with the United Nations resident coordinator, Mr. Neil Boone, who was actually telling us about the peacekeeping missions and what challenges they have to face. But now, coming down to the one of my favorite parts, because of the fact that, you know, a few days ago I was actually watching a video over the social media where there was a group of people reciting Quran all together as well. And you never know when dreams come true, so I think it has come true so far. Since it's Ramadan, so it's going to be in line with that, ladies and gentlemen. We have been joined by a group of Quran reciters from Iran, and I think that they're doing a wonderful job so far. And just to listen to them and, you know, to see all of this happening is just a treat for an eye too as well. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to introduce, but before I introduce the group, which is with the name of Baqiyatullah, I hope that I'm actually pronouncing it right as well, but first things first, I'm going to introduce Mr. Muhammad Raza Kaka, the Cultural Council Embassy of Iran, Islamabad. Hello, Assalamu alaikum,
Thank you.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you very much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you.
Yes, I'm thankful to the administration of Pakistan Television, PTV World, for inviting us in this program.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you. And ladies and gentlemen, talking about people who actually make sure that when they recite Quran, they recite it together, ladies and gentlemen, people from Baqiyatullah group. And they've made their way from Iran too as well. On my right hand side, I've been joined by Mr. Qari Mehdi Faroghi. Hello. Hale Shama Chatore.
I'm fine, thanks.
Thank you very much for joining us. Wonderful to have you. And then we have Mr. Ru'Allah Shafi'i, if I'm pronouncing it right. Yes. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
And alongside him, ladies and gentlemen, we have Muhammad Mirza Khawani. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you. And last but not the least, Qari Sayyid Hamid Mehdi Zwada. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you very much for joining us. First things first, so what are you going to share with us? Go ahead. Yeah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر ليلة القدر خير من 1000 شهر تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر صدق الله العظيم.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is definitely mesmerizing to listen to them early in the morning. I think it makes me feel superb, and I just do not have words to explain how I feel. And we definitely hope that everybody who's out there, who's actually listening and watching us as well, is getting the same impact. I think that it's beautiful. But then at the same time, there's this one more thing which you were mentioning before we even got started, that you've actually prepared something in Urdu. So, are you going to share that with us?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. And thank you very much for doing that for our people. It's wonderful. Let's do it.
शाह मदीना शाह मदीना शाह मदीना शाह मदीना यसरब खवानी सारे नबी तेरे दर की सवाली शाह मदीना शाह मदीना यसरब खवानी सारे नबी तेरे दर की सवाली शाह मदीना शाह मदीना
जलवे हैं सारे तेरे ही दम से आबाद आलम तेरे करम से
आबाद आलम तेरे करम से जलवे सारे तेरे दम से आबाद आलम तेरे करम से बाकी हर एक शे बाकी हर एक शे नक्श ख़याली सारे नबी तेरी दर की सवाली शाह मदीना शाह मदीना
तेरे लिए ही दुनिया बनी है नीले फलक की चादर तनी है
नीले फलक की चादर तनी है तेरे लिए ही दुनिया बनी है नीले फलक की चादर तनी है तू गर ना होता तू गर ना होता दुनिया खाली सारे नबी तेरी दर की सवानी शाह मदीना शाह मदीना
तूने जहाँ की महफिल सजाई तारीकियों में शम्मा जलाई
तारीकियों में शम्मा जलाई तूने जहाँ की महफिल सजाई तारीकियों में शम्मा जलाई हर सिमत चाई हर सिमत चाई तेरा तकाली सारे नबी तेरी दर की सवाली शाह मदीना शाह मदीना यसरब के वाली सारे नबी तेरे दर की सवाली शाह मदीना शाह मदीना शाह मदीना शाह मदीना
Subhanallah, Jazakallah. Very beautiful, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that everybody out there is feeling the impact of the words as well. And when especially four people do it together, I think that it increases the impact as well. But then, without wasting any time, since we're only left for the last 5 minutes, so I'll wrap up and then throw it on to them as well, where they're actually going to recite. So now for the last one, you're actually going to recite Quran, right? Is that what we're doing? I mean, you can tell them as well. right? Okay, so are you guys ready? So, okay, let me just wrap up. So for everybody who's out there, we definitely hope that you've taken something away today as well. And life is a learning process. And in this learning process, if you need to learn something from us, please make sure to write to us on our Facebook fan page, which is with the name of World This Morning. On Twitter, it's World This Morning without a G. On Daily Motion and YouTube, it's World This Morning. And the repeat's going to be at 11 p.m. tonight. Till the next time, look after yourselves. Over to you. Jazakallah. Thank you very much for being with us. It was wonderful to have you on the show. Thank you very much. Jazakallah, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Look after yourselves. Bye-bye.